Los Angeles, new developments in the case of Eric and Lyle Menendez, who are serving life sentences for killing their parents. Now, more than a dozen relatives are calling for the brothers' release in light of new evidence under review. Caribe Devine is up in the newsroom with the latest twist. Caribe?
Hi, Tran. The notorious Menendez brothers are currently serving life without parole, but now they're getting renewed attention sparked by the popular Netflix series. Now, several family members are calling for their release.
Their actions, while tragic, were the desperate response of two boys trying to survive the unspeakable cruelty of their father.
Among those supporting Eric and Lyle Menendez, the 92-year-old sister of Kitty Menendez, who was murdered by her sons in 1989, along with her husband, Jose.
If Lyle and Eric's case were heard today, with the understanding we now have about abuse and PTSD, there is no doubt in my mind that their sentencing would have been very different.
Relatives of both Kitty and Jose arguing new evidence under review by the LA District Attorney backs the brothers' long-standing claim they acted in self-defense after years of abuse by their father.
I grew up knowing and feeling something wasn't right. The feeling in their house and the father-son interactions were just off.
But the family is split. An attorney for Kitty's brother says he believes his nephews were motivated by greed and wants them to remain behind bars.
Does your client believe the brothers' claim that they acted in self-defense after years of physical and sexual abuse?
Milton Anderson does not believe that, but should those allegations have been true, it doesn't excuse what they did to their parents, and it doesn't excuse the murders that they committed.
The LA District Attorney telling NBC News that he does believe the brothers' claims that they were molested and does not believe that they should spend the rest of their lives in prison. He hopes to make a decision about his recommendation within the next 10 days. Tram, back down to you.
Caribe, thanks. So let's take a legal deep dive into this case. Joining me once again is criminal defense attorney Hector Diaz of Diaz Law. All right, this was a case we all remember that happened in the late 80s. Why is it being resurrected now?
You know, for those of you that have Netflix, this is a great series. I mean, it's fantastic. It's put attention back on this story.
Yeah.
And you also have celebrities that are coming out now that are speaking on behalf of the Menendez brothers saying that, sure, they committed these horrible acts. They did murder their
There's
parents.
no doubt they did it.
Absolutely.
But what is in question now? A retrial, a resentence? What is it that they want?
So what they're asking for, and really where they stand the best chance here, is to get a resentence. I do think that Mark Garagos, who's our lawyer, is likely going to seek for the conviction to be tossed out. That's a tall order. I think the more likely result here, or scenario, would be that the judge who sentenced them initially back in the early 90s didn't take into consideration the fact that they were victims of this horrific prolonged abuse, and that this is what caused them to engage in the acts that they did. It's mitigation is what we call it, and that the court didn't give and evaluate that mitigation in the appropriate manner. We know a lot more now. In this day and age, we know that in fact victims of sexual abuse do commit acts like this, that there's an explanation here, the PTSD that factors into it. I mean, it's there are other high profile cases. The Gypsy Rose, that also is a Netflix show. This young lady who was abused by her mother, murdered her mother, and that court took into consideration some of the victim issues that had factored into the conduct. And so this is a situation where I know the DA here is almost advocating that to look at this, to look at the evidence that corroborates that in fact they were victims of sexual abuse by their father.
I mean, no doubt that it seems like Netflix, other celebrities shining the light on this case, that seems to have some kind of an influence. But what do you think will be next? What will be the outcome?
So I think what you have is a DA there in Los Angeles looking at this new evidence, the evidence that in fact, apparently one of the brothers had written a letter to his relative saying, hey, my father's abusing me, predating the murders. Additionally, you have another person who alleges that their father had sexually abused them around this time frame. And so they're going to weigh that. They're going to look at other cases. They're going to say, have they served enough time here? Have they, we're talking
because it's been over 30 years.
Over 30 years that they have served. I do think that this is a situation where ultimately the court's going to make the decision.
Right.
A judge might see it differently, might see it and say, you know what, this was evaluated. There are issues of being victims of sexual abuse were factored into the sentence and could leave the sentence as it is. I don't think that's going to happen.
You think they'll be set free?
I do. I think that what you're going to have here is a situation where the judge is going to say, you've served a sufficient sentence for these crimes, is going to evaluate this new evidence and is going to find that their conduct was, essentially they were victims of this abuse, and that factored into their conduct.
Okay.
I think they're going to be released.
All right. We'll see. Hector, always, we appreciate your time. Thank you. Rachel?
Tram, thank you.